No, I said this is why we can talk about so much stationery because Vishal uses it all.
Yes, this is one of the reasons we started this series.
Welcome to Stationery Test Drive with Inky Memo. I'm Samir.
This is Minjal.
And I'm Vishal. And today we are looking at the Rorito Fasty gel pen. But before that, Samir, why don't you tell us what you're up to?
I've been experimenting with my paper craft, and most recently I've been trying out pop-up design. This is one of the little experiments that I've been doing. And I'm going to be trying out more pop-up patterns to test out.
Angel?
So I've actually started a project where I will be working on 12 calligraphy scripts, practicing them, hoping to master them through the year. So I've started with the Untitled script.
And I have been working on yet more sketchbooks. Many of them have a few entries in them. Some of them are relevant to this episode, in fact. You'll see them later in the episode. But there are many more. And every year I just seem to start more and more of them. And Samir, go ahead.
No, I said this is why we can talk about so much stationery because Vishal uses it all.
Yes, this is one of the reasons we started this series. And one of the other reasons we got to starting this series is because Samir and I picked up a pack of these Rorito Fasty gel pens. I can show you the pack itself. It's, as it says, it's 5 rupees per pen, which is, I don't know, 10 cents or something maybe in the US, or even less.
Even less.
Sure. But we ended up with them for a workshop that did not end up happening. So we figured we might as well use the pens themselves. And to our great surprise, they were good.
Yeah, because I picked them up for a workshop thinking this would be the most functional, simplest thing that I can just give people during the workshop. But it's turned out to be a surprisingly usable and surprisingly flexible medium to work with.
For something that is so cheap. It is, 5 rupees is cheap even in India at this point.
Absolutely, yes.
And for a very performant, if I can use that term, as an art tool pen. So tell us what the difference is, Samir, between a gel pen and other pens, because I assume it has a gel in it.
Yes, gel pen is a modern version or a modern innovation of a regular ballpoint pen. I think we've mentioned it in our Reynolds episode before about how ballpoint pens, and I made the same mistake there too, essentially consist of an ink that is oil based with a dye in it. The thing that's different about a gel pen is that it's a pigment based ink, but it has a water gel as kind of the binder. So the benefits of that, of course, is that there's less smudging. It dries out much easier, so you have
very quickly
none of that issue that you would normally have with a traditional ballpoint pen.
It does ball a little at the edge of the pen, but it's not like a ballpoint where eventually it will just smudge and come off.
Exactly.
Unless you're actually putting it on a paper like I did right now, and then you can get a bit of a. But even then, it's very little compared to a ballpoint pen. So
the point of the gel pen is because it's water based, it can dry off much quicker, and because of the gel medium, you can also have pigment that's a lot stronger than in your average ballpoint pen. So you have the ability to make a pen that's a lot more opaque.
Yes, it's a beautiful black, deep black ink. It's not very blue, it's not very grey, which is how many other cheap pens and cheap blacks are. As a use case, I think what we were surprised by is just how much of it is. It reminds me of my other favorite pen, which we have covered on this channel, which is the Uni Pin fineliner. And that's, I think we all ended up using it in different ways. So maybe we'll show off our test drives for this session, and then we can talk about the ways we can use these pens well and for various things. Minjal, why don't you show us yours? You have yours open. That's lovely. And this one's mine. And Samir, that is yours. And I think everyone can pretty much tell that
That's quite a range.
there's quite a range of things. As usual, we've gone for 3 different papers, 3 different styles of artwork, but it's the same pen. So I think let's just start with Samir. Tell us about the way you use this.
I've been trying to do more artwork that's kind of built around comics and the way the comic style of art, and also including text with it. And I thought the great thing about this pen is that most people obviously use it to write with. So I wanted to do something that I could write with and draw with in the same image, and I thought a comic panel was the perfect thing to do that. Also, because of how black these pens are, it kind of reminded me of old horror EC comics, if people know what those are. We'll include a link in the description to what those are. And so I thought of these kind of dark scenes with creepy looking characters, and this was just a great way to do that.
And a lot of hatching. That was a mainstay of that style as
Yes. Traditionally, the comics would have been made using a brush or a marker of some sort, maybe.
well. Or a dip pen,
Or a
which
dip
we will
pen.
cover in the future because those are lovely as well.
But having used the Rorito before, I was quite sure that it would be able to handle that sort of very deep black line work, and I think it did quite a great job.
It has. It's quite a variety.
And that too, this is again just copy paper.
Yeah, so it's a very
not,
thin one.
Not too
You
much
can see
show
through it. Yeah.
considering how much hatching I've done.
And did you have any trouble putting down a line or getting the exact line you wanted?
No, I think there are times when it can dry out a bit or kind of run thinner, but other than that, it was quite consistent. I have to say.
Because I had that problem with mine, which is again a comic book style image, but very much in a it's not quite lean clear, which is a style of cartooning and art, but I used a 120 140 GSM paper. It's quite toothy, which has worked out well with other mediums, but in this one I don't know if you can see, maybe it was just the pen I was using at the time was drying out, but it really, I had to kind of gouge it out a little to get some lines. But once the ink started flowing and I actually kind of eased off on it, I think I started getting better line weights and better just flow. And I think the thing that I love about this pen is the line weight. It's unique to at least this one that we've tried. Other gel pens are available. Maybe they have similar traits, but it's not quite like a Uni Pin fineliner, but it's a bit livelier a line, if I can explain it that way. It's not as lively as a brush, but it's also not as clinical as some fineliners, and that's a weird thing to say about a 5 rupee gel pen that you can get in a packet of 5 or 10. But yeah, I enjoyed using it. I've enjoyed using it in other books. Like I said, we did this drawing is very much like something I'm doing in this sketchbook I have called Rough Space. These are all drawings done with the Rorito Fasty, which is an odd name. We have no idea why it's called the Fasty. So yeah, these are all with the same gel pen on a paper that's much thinner than this one, a bit smoother. So I think that's a good thing. Get a smoother paper, even if it's a thicker one. Don't go for the really toothy ones.
And speaking of line quality and smoother paper, that's kind of what Minjal has covered here. Since she's done something that's very line based and all single strokes for these letters. What was your experience with doing this as far as line variation is concerned?
So I don't really use gel pens too much. I found this very freeing, in that the Pilot Parallel pen and those kind of pens can really, also in terms of your mindset, you end up making more structured material. But with this, and I was thinking maybe it's called Fasty because the ink dries very quickly.
Possible.
So
It
the
does.
the Fasty actually helps because you can really go all the way from A to Z and you're not going to smudge anything. I actually tried out a lot of just abstract freehand lettering based art pieces, which I will share, or maybe we'll put up the links. So I actually enjoyed using this a lot, the Rorito.
So you had the same experience we had, which is we went in with almost no expectations, and it surprised you.
Pretty much.
Because that is exactly what our experience was. We did not, like I said, we picked this up for one of Samir's paper nautic workshops. It was literally just something for people to use in the workshop should they need a pen, which they rarely do, but we like to give one away. And then yes, we never ended up using it for months. So but then one day we were like, okay, I just needed something and I didn't have a fineliner with me, and we thought, okay, let's at least use these normal pens that we have. Let's put something out, and just like a sketch or something on throwaway paper. But it surprised us.
And it's gotten to the point now where we might have used it originally as a replacement for when we didn't have a fine liner, but Vishal and I both now sometimes just choose this as the first choice.
Exactly, this has now become one of my favorite pens to use for, like you said, clean, almost mechanical drawings and sketches like that. I think Samir has shown that you can get an organic line quality to it, but it's quite good for drawing mechas, as they say. And in fact, one of the reasons we know that is there's a YouTuber we like. His name's Choma Moma, I think, and he draws a bunch of mecha like this using a similar fine liner. I don't not, gel pen. I forget which one it is exactly, but he too draws a lot of mechas and mechanical things and machines and whatnot. And I think both us and him, we've figured out that gel pens give you that very clean line, and it makes sense to then draw things that are clean lined with them.
So the gel pen technology, I believe, is fairly recent. I think it was it was during the 1980s.
I certainly don't remember seeing anything called a gel pen until the late 90s, pretty much, as a general use thing. Maybe they were specialized before, but in India, certainly I remember gel pens being like a new thing.
I think the gel pen as we know it now was invented somewhere in the mid 80s, 83, 84, by Sakura in Japan. It was quite an innovation to move from ball pens, which were, again, the ink was oil based,
The roller balls.
roller balls,
Yeah.
to something like this, which again just gets rid of so many of the problems that old ball pens especially had. We've covered in our Reynolds ball pen video that newer ball pens are much better than they used to be. They are almost as smudge free as this one. But when these first came out, they would have been a huge improvement over ball pens in the 1980s. So Sakura came up with these in Japan initially, and then I think their first American version were the jelly rolls, which we will also cover in one of our future videos. So yes, the gel pen has been quite an interesting innovation. It's
So they mostly work the way they do because of the gel based.
And what is the gel in there?
gel-based
It's
ink.
clearly it's not the kind of jello that you end up eating with ice cream here.
surprisingly, it's not that far off.
Oh, okay. So I can eat this.
I mean, the ink and the color, that's a different story. But as far as the gel is concerned, it actually when gel pens started, they used gelling agents. So essentially, they're chemicals that you add to water to give it that viscosity. And the gelling agents used when they started, especially, were natural gelling agents, which
Coconut oil, I believe. No.
no, I think the gelling agents used were xanthan gum, which was invented I think in the 60s.
It's a common additive. It's there in most foods.
and,
It's
and
there.
these days you can find xanthan gum in certain ice creams and
Yeah,
desserts.
you can find it. It gained a great footing in regular acceptance outside industrial food acceptance in the whole molecular gastronomy movement in food in the 2000s.
But the interesting thing is that xanthan gum is like gel pens. It's a relatively new invention, 1960s. But the other material that's also used as a gelling agent is a gum called Tragacanth Gum, which is the sap of a tree. And I believe it's Tragacanth is kind of Greek for goat's thorn or something like that. So it's this thorny little
Bush, I was
bush, I assume, which gives out this sap. And that was the gelling agent used in some of the initial pens. And I mean, as we like to dig through these stories about stationery, and everything has a connection. Tragacanth gum is quite old. It's been used traditionally in the Middle East for, I'm guessing, hundreds, if not thousands of years.
Well, it has a Greek name and sounds pretty ancient to me. So
I believe most of it is even today grown in Iran. So it's been used medicinally. It's been used artistically for centuries. In the Middle East, Tragacanth gum is what's used as kind of the substrate when they're marbling paper. It's also one of the gums used when in the production of chalk pastels. So there are a lot of stationary connections to these common materials. And yes, you can also eat it. So that's quite a material.
I think the line of edible gel pens is certainly the future. I know there was a line of perfume gel pens.
There was a line of food perfumed crayons which Crayola had to stop because kids did end up eating them and they were not meant to. So food flavored things is a dangerous road to go down, I think.
So you're saying that edible stationery is not really on the cards as far as our merchandise is concerned?
I'm sure there are great pieces of edible stationery. I guess you just need to figure out the actual edible part versus the flavor and the scent of it, because I think those things get confusing. But I think any woman who has a decent amount of facial scrubs and cosmetics today has that confusion, because I know chocolate flavored things and all of those which are not edible but
I think
smell edible anyway.
I think we're veering off topic, but getting back to even candles smell like wonderful wonderful edible things these days. But yes, the Rorito gel pen, I think we really don't have anything bad to say about this. So
We're
it's
fans.
We're fans. I would just say, other than paper choice and maybe keeping it in good nick, because I know that these kind of dry out after a while, and the ones we have are literally years old. We bought them before everything. So but you can revive these, I think, you with a bit of water or something like that, if you soak them in.
I think so. The only other sort of aside and interesting piece of trivia is that the Rorito company, it's made by an Indian company called GM Pens, and until about, I think, 2016, they were the ones who were licensed to make the Reynolds pen. So essentially this pen at some point was a Reynolds pen, I assume.
The Reynolds Fasty just does not have the same ring to it, but okay. Those are, I'm guessing, legal quandaries, and they're interesting, and people might want to look into that whole, not quite sordid, but it's a multi-character, multi-generational affair. But right now, this thing is the Rorito Fasty gel pen. It is very cheap. It's very cheap. We love it. You can do all sorts of things with it. Is there anything that you would like to try doing with it, Minjal, that after seeing this range that you have not? Because we usually don't actually show these to each other until the day of the shoot. So what are your thoughts after seeing all of these? And this, of course, which is just...
I'll probably try some more, illustration art like you all have. Maybe incorporated with my lettering.
I like the way these letters kind of just tumble into each other, and then some of the slabs of them.
Yeah, I call it the alphabet drop.
Alphabet drop soup.
Yes, there's a thing. So clearly, since we've been talking about edible stationery and alphabet drop soup, clearly we have food on our minds. So I think maybe we should go and have something. Um, uh, Before we go, is there anything else you want to say about this, or
I
gel
think
pens
we've
in general?
covered. I think we've covered most of it, and this is really just one of those instruments that is utterly simple, and you should just
Yeah.
go out and use one.
It's a no-brainer. Get one, use one for all sorts of applications. There is really nothing to say other than tell us what gel pens you get for the equivalent of 5 Indian rupees in your part of the world. Show us things that you do with it. Comment below or send it to us on social media. We'd really like to see what people do with these humble but useful things. And I think that's it for this time. Until the next time, where can everyone find Samir?
Inky Memo is at inkymemo.com, where you can sign up for our e-newsletter. Please do sign up and subscribe to the YouTube channel which you're currently watching. Turn on your notifications. We bring out an episode every week or so, and we hope to keep going with these and making more of them.
Minjal?
Well, I'm on Minjal Kadakya across social media networks, and my website is minjalkadakya.com.
And you can find me most places at All Vishal, which is on screen right now. There's allvishal.com and most social media. We post these artworks separately and in higher resolutions, of course, as stills, mostly when the episodes drop or a day after. So you can get a better look at them there. There is all the rest of our work that we do. Samir's paper stuff is at papernautic.com, which is how we ended up getting these pens. So that's that story to that. And I think that's it. So, Samir, what do you have to say to our people before we go?
Use all your stationery.